So this is kind of like a new video idea that I had because I was talking to a buddy of mine, and he was talking about like, did you know how many characters don't have parents, especially in popular shonen animes and mangas? I was, "Man, you're not wrong." We started listing them off. You got Black Clover, you got Dragon Ball with Goku, you got Naruto, you got Sasuke, you have Ichigo doesn't have a mother. And I just started thinking about why. Why is that such a popular trope in those animes and mangas? And so this is kind of I did a deep dive. I got on the computer, started doing that research because I was really interested in finding out has this been so popular for decades. So yeah, let's talk about it. So the first point that immediately popped into my head was usually in shonens you have younger characters. And so it'd be real weird if they had parents bossing around. It would kind of take away, especially if the character's like, you're going to save the universe. You're not going to believe someone's going to save the universe if you had a mom be like, yeah, but clean your room? Like, can you... no, you better pick that up. Like, it's going to take away from the fact that he is, like, destined to be this greatest fighter ever if he had a mom and dad, like, on his back constantly. I think that's one of the biggest things. And I think that's the reason that a lot of creators decide really to throw the parents in the trash can. Because it makes it more believable, because you kind of lose the focus of, this is a young kid that's saving the universe. And I think that helps with their storytelling ability as well. Think about this. Would Naruto be as interesting if his parents were around? If his parents were just in the village and he just had a normal upbringing, would he be an interesting character? Even with the nine tails still in his body, would you care about him more, or would you care about him less if he was just a happy kid eating ramen, just going out with mom and dad to see a movie? I don't know, they didn't have movies there, but they might. See what makes him interesting. He's just a village outcast. And a lot has to do with, oh, he's the kid with no parents. That's what makes him an interesting character. Would the Jiraiya relationship mean anything if he had parents? See, it takes away, and that's when it's done well, it takes away the aspect of the character that makes him different from everyone else in that world. And I think when it's done well, and Naruto does it very well, is it adds to the character's story. And then you got number two. The thought that I had was, you have the trope of the parent either sacrificing themselves or dying in front of them. Vinland Saga does it amazingly. You know, that's just a recent example, top of my head. But see, when you have that, usually their target audience is younger generations. So you have that immediate emotional connections, because usually a kid has parents and it's that easy connection to make of like, I don't want my mom to die, especially in front of me with a bunch of arrows. That's not something that I want to see. So it helps establish with their target demographic an emotional connection that helps people connect with the main character. Vinland Saga is a perfect example. He goes on that mission for revenge, and the whole story unfolds because his father is shot with arrows right in front of him. And then he ends up joining the person that killed him. Think about if that was you. Think about if you were like, he killed my father, I'm going to join his crew. Think about how your mind would have to work. And see that immediately with 5 panels in the manga, a few scenes in the anime, that immediately in your mind, you are more drawn to that character because you're like, would I be able to do that? Would I be able to sleep and eat and be around the person that killed this man that I looked up to that's my father? You couldn't do it. I mean, maybe you could, but it adds that layer immediately, very quickly, because the creator decided this is the scene that I want to do. It shows how powerful something that can happen so quick can change the trajectory of a character's life. And that's why it's an important trope to have, especially in shonen. Another thing that I think it really helps with is to set up that character to kind of be alone, because you got to think when you're born, you're predisposed to the two people, hopefully, that helped raise you. So to finally cut that off, that character is immediately alone in this world, usually. So when they make those friendships and those training arcs and all that in shonen, I think it helps build those relationships even more, because you're like, oh, this character was alone or always tried to prove something. It helps them. Asta is a perfect example in Black Clover. They have that chip on their shoulder that they want to prove something to somebody because they don't have any type of parental connection in Black Clover. Would they even have a story to tell or worth telling in that world if they weren't dropped off at the priest's front doorstep? If Asta lived a happy life with his mom and dad, Asta wouldn't be who he is. Yuno would not be who he is. You wouldn't get to find out the relationship that Yuno has, that he's royalty. Asta wouldn't have the devil in him if it wasn't for taking away his parents. And see, you might think it's a trope and it's bad storytelling, but with these characters, they use it right. Which leads into the next thing that I think is that a lot of shonen do really well, is the guardianship. You have Jiraiya and Naruto, really Goku and Master Roshi. You have Asta and Yami, and man, there's so many. But it helps with that guardianship because it immediately brings in that, because you can play with it a lot of different ways. You can play with it like they're kind of distant and off, like, oh, because they haven't had any parents, so they're like, man, you can't tell me nothing, old man. Or they yearn for that type of connection, so that guardianship is built on that foundation. And I really think that's why a lot of creators decide to go with the no parent route, to have that guardianship and that training arc. And then a lot of them push it even further and then have that guardian or, master die in front of them. So, their characters are really, really messed up, which makes for good storytelling. You can't deny that. Goku is another great example. Goku would not be who he is and the savior of the world multiple times as if he grew up on planet Vegeta. Him and Vegeta would be besties, just kicking it. And he would be destroying planets. He would be the complete opposite of a savior. But since his parents were taken away, his whole planet was taken away, he becomes the savior. You see, that is the starting off point to traject him to who he's supposed to be. But why is it that this trope is so popular that not only have manga and anime done it, but comic books, movies, TV shows, anything you can think of? That's why I call it the Batman syndrome. Is because I do believe he is probably one of the best known characters where his parents die in front of him and it makes him who he is. Which is another point, is they can use it to make that character who they are supposed to be in this fictional world that they're creating. The most recent example I can think of is Denji in Chainsaw Man. It would not have led him to the devil that he makes a pact with, and and he becomes the main character of this story if he had a happy upbringing with parents that loved him or parents that were alive. He would not become who he is and end up fighting all these demons for the betterment of the world if they didn't take his parents from him. And it shows that these characters grow because of tragedy. I think the reason that it transcends just anime and manga and goes into comic books, movies, and TV shows is because, truthfully, for most of us, it's our biggest fear. It's our biggest fear to be left alone in a world, especially at a very, very young age. Because you kind of lose that ability to find yourself. Because the guardianship and these people that are supposed to be the people that protect you from this world until you're old enough to make your own decisions are taken away from you. And that's what makes it so interesting. Is you're flying without a net. You're getting to watch this character at a young age find who they are with nothing to fall back on. So it's our biggest fear, and you get to watch this character overcome it, which I think draws everybody in, you know. And I think that's why it's called a trope, which is kind of like, I don't know, I hate that word. Like, it's popular or a trope or something because it works. And you can tell amazing stories by playing on people's biggest fears. And no one ever gets tired of someone that is down for the count. The underdog story will never get old. And one of the biggest ways to make somebody an underdog is to take away the net through life. So it's just an idea, and it's just a thought that I really thought was interesting, and it made me really think about these characters in a different way. And I hope watching this kind of helped you understand it. But yeah, let me know down, what do you think the biggest or the best use of the Batman complex has been in anime and manga. So yeah, thanks for watching. See you later.